Hey everyone, and welcome to Almost Cancelled. I am Peter, that is Connor, and we are going to talk about Castle Rock Season 1, Episode 1. It's called Severance, and because it's the first episode, it's a pilot, we are going to start this spoiler free. We'll give you a warning in the middle before we get into spoilers, and we'll see how this is. First of all, we are a little bit late with this. We should have had this out on, well, maybe not Wednesday, but definitely Thursday, and we're a couple of days late due to some tech issues and a few other things. Tech issues which have not been completely resolved actually, but we're still tinkering away.
We're working through them somehow.
But here we are. So Hulu put out the first 3 episodes of this on the first day, meaning we have another 2 to watch before Wednesday, Thursday, where we'll do the 4th one. So we'll try and get
I
all
hate
these
Hulu
in.
doing this.
I know.
Joe, I know people are like, 3 episodes. I get that's the point. It's like, get them hooked, right?
Yep.
But from our perspective, it's a nightmare to schedule. Even when it shows we like, it's a nightmare to schedule.
It is.
And also, it makes me feel like I'm missing half the season, especially when it's like a 10-episode season. And I get to the end, I'm like, hang on. I've only been going like 6-7 weeks. Where's the rest of it?
Yeah, it makes the pacing feel weird because you get the first 4 so quick, relatively speaking. And then it's like a week to week, and obviously I say the first 4 because we spread out the first 3 a little bit, and so the gap between 3 and 4 is a lot shorter. But anyway, so what is Castle Rock? Castle Rock, we've been talking about this for a long time in the news. This is the Stephen King set show where it's like based on different ideas from different books of his. Castle Rock's a fictional town that appears in a lot of his work. There's references to some of his stuff. Now I don't think either of us are experts in Stephen King stuff or have read a ton of Stephen King by any means.
I've read 2 of his books.
I've seen a lot of the movies based on his books, which
I've seen a handful.
Which, to be fair, I think actually did quite a bit for me here. Our friend Tim, who does Screams After Midnight with me, is a huge Stephen King fan. He somehow finds a new Stephen King book to read like almost every week, and
I don't know how he hasn't read them all already, because he seems to just constantly be reading a Stephen King book, and I'm like, haven't you done this already?
And I know King does churn out a lot, but he doesn't churn out enough that you could do one a week for 10 years, right?
Ever. No, because it does seem like every week Tim's like, hey, I'm on this book now. I'm like, how is there still more?
Yeah, it's odd. But hey, so Castle Rock. So we actually didn't really have a good idea of what the plot was. Like, I feel like they did a good job. It's a J.J. Abrams produced show, and he loves to keep his cards close to the chest. And I feel like, okay, we know it's Stephen King. We know there's going to be characters, locations, and ideas from Stephen King stories, but beyond that, like, I didn't know what the plot was going to be.
We didn't know if this was going to be an adaptation of, like, because we knew it was anthology-esque to a degree, but we didn't know, like, is it going to be, okay, so here's 3 or 4 stories that we're going to adapt and intertwine them, or is it going to be just general themes and ideas, a couple of characters here or there?
I actually don't know if the main story in this is an adaptation.
I believe it's original from what I've been reading.
Okay, that makes sense. It feels like an original. It feels like it's taken the setting, some of the thematic things, and obviously the big notable thing in this first episode is Shawshank Prison is a big feature.
Yeah, and I believe Scott Glenn's character is a character in a few of King's stories.
I feel like a couple of the characters are probably going to end up being those types of characters that.
Yeah, probably, but him in particular, I know. But that's the thing. What I was going to say is, as much as I believe this is an original story right now, there's nothing that says I have a suspicion that maybe it'll swerve into a familiar.
I could see that
at some point.
I could see it doing that. My biggest complaint about episode 1 is that Jane Levi's in this show and she's not in episode 1, and I'm like, come on. I was looking forward to her more than anyone. What are you doing, show? What are you doing?
She is pretty great, isn't she?
But so the actual plot of this first episode and the kicking off the plot of the show is that a mysterious prisoner who was not on the books, who has been held captive in Shawshank Prison, is found, and no one knows who he is. But he asked for one person. He asked for a lawyer named Henry Deaver, who grew up in this town of Castle Rock and has a bit of an interesting history as a child there. And he comes back to try and investigate what's going on. And I'd say that's the spoiler-free premise of the show now. There's definitely mystery. There's definitely some really big unanswered questions that have kept us thinking.
Yeah, no, I think it says a lot that even that spoiler-free premise that you just give there is is more than they've been giving away in the marketing.
Oh yeah, I never knew any of this. Like when they find that like mysterious prisoner, I was like, I had no idea that's what the plot.
Yeah.
I think we saw one of the trailers, like the Shawshank like thing in the car, so we knew Shawshank was
Yeah,
going to be in it. But for all I knew, that was like a one little cameo, like sort of here's an Easter
yeah,
egg.
we knew Shawshank was gonna be there, but at the same time, in that thing, I believe they had Pennywise in that video, and obviously we have Bill Skarsgård here as that
Yeah,
prisoner who was of course
who
Pennywise
he is.
in It last year.
He is credited as the kid, so that's what we can call him, the
Is
kid.
he? Okay, the kid. Cool.
Yeah. Uh, so no, it's interesting. Obviously, we have obviously Sissy Spacek, who was in Carrie, as Ruth Deaver, Henry's mother. So we got that. Scott Glenn's in there, as Alan Pangborn, which again, as you said, is a character from various books. So you know, some notable Melanie Linsky's in there. Who she was on Two and a Half Men for a long time, but she was in a movie last year called I Don't Want to Live in This World Anymore. If you suck that, that was a like a comedy on Netflix, like a dark comedy. So yeah, let's cast there, and the aforementioned Jane Levi. So big cast. Terry O'Quinn, of course, has got a role here as well. Seems to be a smaller role, but I mean, it was nice to see him. Of course, he's worked with J.J. Abrams and Lost and stuff like that. So anyway, I'll ask the question: did you enjoy the first episode? Are you into Castle Rock?
Well, I think it's all right. I wouldn't say I'm into it yet.
Yeah.
It's pretty slow and moody. I think is a word I'd use.
Yes, nothing has turned me off yet. I'll say that.
No, I agree with that.
Yeah, like I'm into the mystery. I think the ending kind of seeds that there's maybe more, or even more to this than
Yeah, there's a reasonable sense of style.
Yeah,
especially within the prison. I thought within the prison and out by the lake, those those environments in particular seem to have style to them.
Do you know what I'm getting odd vibes from, actually? Or similar vibes to something else. I'm getting these, and it's not like I necessarily think it's going to go down the same plot device that show had, but I'm getting some of the same vibes as Dark, the Netflix show. In that there's these weird elements to it where, okay, so why was this kid here? We kind of know who had him there. That's a spoiler though, I won't say who here. It's like, okay, so why was it a bad reason? Was it a good reason? How does this connect to what happened when some characters were kids? Like, I don't know, I'm just getting some of these, like, okay, there's something going on in this town and it's been going on all this time.
I can see what you're saying.
Yeah.
I think ultimately though, that just feels like what I expect from Stephen King.
Sure. But that's what I was getting. I mean, maybe that's just a case of like Dark kind of did a good Stephen King show before Stephen King got his own show.
But kind of, yeah.
With his own twist to things, of course. I mean, that's a very hard sci-fi time travel show. Like, it's not like I don't think of time travel in this.
Just saying, oh, it did a Stephen King thing is doing a disservice to it.
Oh, sure, yeah. And I'm not saying that I don't think Stephen King's never used time travel. I just don't think of that first when I think of
and because 11/22/63, of course, is Stephen King.
Yeah,
right?
And that's time travel. Yep.
And that's time travel. So I mean, one big notable example there off the top of our head.
Yeah. So I don't really mean anything by it other than just it's not what I think of when I think of King. I'm into it. I think and again, it's so hard to talk about any more of this without spoilers because it is such about the mystery. It's like every character connection feels like it's something would be a spoiler. Like, okay, so this person knows this person, that feels like a spoiler. All these elements feel like that. I think right now I'm into the mystery. I'm curious as to what it is. Obviously I'd like it to get even more intriguing as we go, and we'll see if it does. But right now I'm curious as to why he's there, who is he, and yeah, my gut instinct is that he's probably someone who's not been seen since he was a kid.
Yeah, probably.
And he's been been held up for 20, 30 years. Well, he's maybe not that old. Well, he's
about 25 years, I'd say.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, if he was taken as a 5-year-old, then sure.
Yeah, I'm not sure how old he. I'm gonna have a look how old he is.
I don't know how old Bill Skarsgård is.
He was born in 1990, so okay. 28?
God. I feel
He's actually a little bit younger than I thought he was. I thought he was 3 or 4 years older than that at least.
he's a year younger than me, and it just makes me feel old now that when you said
Yeah,
1990.
he looks a lot better than you do, doesn't he?
Shut up. No, what I meant was, is you say 1990 and I think, oh, he's 28. Shit, I'm older than that. Damn it. That sucks. Anyway, so yeah, so I mean, there you go.
Go on. I was going to say my biggest critique of this episode is that it feels a bit methodical. Like, okay, this is just it's not, I won't hold against the show too much because it's in episode 1, right? But it's like we're introducing this thing, and then here's this thing. There are a couple of moments that kind of break out of that mold, but for the most part, I feel like it's kind of doing what it kind of has to.
That's fair. I think there's some neat touches though. It's like when you first hear a character mentioned, it cuts to that character for the first time. There's a couple of neat links just to kind of make it a bit more smooth, and it does. I think if I have a bigger complaint is that I feel like it's maybe not quite hitting the tone yet. Like it's maybe not quite hitting the tone that I think it wants to hit.
Yeah, okay. It's got a bit of a mystery to it, but
yeah.
But it's not all consuming or anything like that, is it? It's not, you're not like, oh, I need to know this.
Admittedly, there's a thing at the end that maybe ramps that up a little bit, and we can hopefully get from there. So I think with that, we will give the spoiler warning. We'll say it's worth checking out. The reviews from other places have been kind of mixed on it. I think it's if you like the idea of a Stephen King shared universe like show, and you like the idea of the mystery, then go for it. If you hate mysteries in TV though, I can probably already tell you won't like it, just because you won't like it.
I think, no, to be fair, mysteries are a tough act because I think mysteries in themselves, they're intriguing, right? They get you hooked, but if they don't deliver, if they're not satisfying, it can ruin the entire show. And so it's a fine line to walk.
Yes. I think though, like even the best mysteries upset some people are just never satisfied with them. And if you're the sort of person who's never been satisfied with where a TV shows went, then yeah, just don't bother, because you're never going to be. You're like this unobtainable perfect mystery wrap up just doesn't exist for you. So
this isn't going to be the show to give it.
Yeah. So no. So full spoilers then for episode 1 of Castle Rock. So there's some big stuff that comes towards the end, particularly the kid. So obviously he asked for Henry Deaver, and Henry Deaver, I mean, he doesn't actually get to see him, so he doesn't really. I mean, we don't really find out if he knows who this kid is yet, because it never happens.
No, and it's worth noting they're the only words that the kid speaks.
Yeah, he's very silent until the new warden, and we should mention that there's a new warden in Shawshank, because Terry O'Quinn, who played the old warden, Lacey, Dale Lacey, that's what it was. He murders himself at the start of the episode.
Murders himself.
Yes, suicide.
He commits suicide. Yeah, but
that's
you don't say he murders himself.
You can phrase it that way if you want to, for some.
No, you can't. I don't think murder intrinsically has to be against someone else. You can't murder yourself.
Look, I'm going to argue the way he does it is technically murdering himself, because he sets up the noose and then kills himself with driving the car off the cliff. He effectively it's almost like a knock-on effect. He has like a domino effect of death, and either one will kill him.
What this is you're a kid and you got a loose tooth, so you tie some string around it and put it to the door, and then slam the door to pull it out. That's what this is. It's like, do you know what? I'm not gonna go through that. So car, that's the string. That's the door. Like, right, okay, slam. Oh, there we go.
Yeah, so he has both a noose around his neck and he drives off a cliff. So as soon as he reaches the edge of the rope, his neck just goes. It's one way of doing it. Which leads to some mystery. Why did he kill himself? We know that he was about to retire. He didn't seem to want to retire, but I mean. That's not necessarily...
got a buyout from the prison, so he presumably came into a reasonable amount of money from this, so at least some money.
There's even guards talking about that. Like, he'd have been quite wealthy for the rest of his days. Like, why kill himself?
His wife seemed pretty happy that morning, being like, "Hey, look, breakfast. If I'd known it'd be like this, I'd have made you take a buyout years ago."
And he's the first suspect as to he been the one keeping the kid in this like tank in the unused wing of the prison, right? Yeah. And it confirms at the end. We get a flashback at the end where he's with the kid, presumably on the morning that he kills himself, or maybe like the day before, and he says to the kid before he leaves, "Look, when they find you, ask for Henry Deaver." So the kid didn't think of this as himself. This was the warden saying, "Ask for this person."
Yeah, so he might have no idea who Henry Deaver is. Henry Deaver might have no idea who this kid is.
Yes, but for some, and this is kind of what the mystery is. It's okay, whatever he's done, he wanted to kill himself for it, and he seems that he thinks that's what he has to do. He needs to connect this kid with Henry Deaver. So here's the other bit of the mystery, though, is that Henry Deaver, as a child, went missing for 11 days with his father, and his father never came back. His father just was dead, or presumed dead.
Yeah,
at
no.
least.
Did he go missing with his father? I thought it was he because ultimately
did.
the did he? Because I thought the father was looking for him and he got a broken back like 3 days in or something like that.
Oh, you may be right. You may be right with that detail.
Because the story then became because it was he just ran away from home and his dad died searching for him.
That's right. You're right. Now you're right. You're right. But he was gone for 11 days, and eventually Scott Glenn's character, Pangborn, he's the one who finds him when he was younger, and brings him in. And young Henry has no memory of what happened over those 11 days, and like it's clearly something weird happened because they mentioned multiple times that the temperature that he was at out there in that part of the country, he would have died being out there, without
in like a few hours.
Yes, without any like shelter or heat or whatever.
So he was clearly inside somewhere.
So somehow he's okay. And it does make you wonder if there is like sort of time travel elements going on here, especially the scene at the end where, he finds out that the suicide happened where he was found as a kid, and he goes back out there at the end. And I think it's notable that it starts snowing when he's out there, because obviously at the start in the flashback when he's a kid, it's all covered in snow. It's winter, dead of winter.
Yeah.
And it's like at the end, it's just the first sprinkles of snow, maybe just going into winter, in
just
fall.
As a thematic thing for his character, obviously we're in Maine here because it's a Stephen King set show, so of course we are. But like
also there was a mug at the start. Terry O'Quinn had a mug that said "I love Maine" or something on it, or something like that.
Sounds about right. But what I was going to is here, this presumably one of the most traumatic events of his life is linked to cold and snow.
Yeah.
And of course, where do we find him as an adult? Texas.
Yeah,
right? He's just trying to escape that.
Yeah, and at the end here, just the first sprinkles of snow, and I almost took that as, like, it could just be thematic, right? And we're getting into those cold days again. It's a cold part of his life. We're going back into his psyche, but I almost took it as like a sign of like whatever happened back then is going to happen again.
Yeah, quite possibly.
That's how I kind of read it, but I mean, I could be.
I think it's interesting the way this scene plays, because you have the kid version of him kind of staring out at the lake there, that memory on kind of overlapping, but it looks like it's staring at the adult one, and the adult one feels like he's being watched and turns around and then there's nothing there.
Yeah, you could read this two ways. One, it's a thematic thing where it's like he's kind of remembering that he was standing there, and it's showing you that by showing the young version looking at the old version, or there is actually something weird supernatural thing going on here,
which is not out of the question.
No, because it's Stephen King related, right? I mean, there's something weird going on.
Not everything he does is weird, but enough things that he does are weird that it's a possibility. It's in play.
Yeah, absolutely. So that's interesting. Like what ties him to this kid, what the warden was up to and wanted to connect them with. Was the warden involved in whatever happened to him as a kid?
But yeah, was the warden? Did he take them both at the same time? And that 11 days, he escaped.
Yeah, maybe. And why doesn't he remember? I mean, did they just block it out naturally, or was there some reason why he doesn't remember? Like, there's all these questions, and I do think it's an interesting mystery where it feels like there's some layers to it. And there's the other character who we meet just briefly in this episode, played by Linsky, Molly Strand. We see her buying drugs from like a teenager, and you get a bit of a character where the teenager calls her a MILF, and she just awkwardly like can only afford X amount of drugs. And then as she's driving away, she says, "Oh, you have to be have a kid to be a MILF."
Yeah, I dispute that. That's just not how it works anymore.
It's not how it works, no. So you get a bit of her character. The fact that she doesn't like act weird that he said it. She doesn't like get the. She just very matter of fact. Matter of fact.
What I really appreciate, which I feel is the most common reaction to when someone's called a MILF, is they go, "What's a MILF?" I feel like 95 times out of 100, that's the reaction I see, and I'm bored of that because people know what it is now.
I feel like when it first came about, anyone who was old enough to be a MILF didn't know what it meant.
Yeah, no, that's fair.
Whereas now things have changed a lot of it.
Yeah, but it's still in media. I still see that reaction consistently.
The big part of her character, though, is that she clearly recognises Henry. She's driving past, he is getting off the bus into town, because he, of course, gets a mysterious... Because this is the thing, the new warden, who's replaced the old warden, Terry Quinn, like, she's in... And she's like, disappointed with how everything looks. She's kind of like, okay, we need to fix everything up. She's pissed off that there's an entire wing of the prison that's not being used and hasn't been used for 20-30 years, and that's why she sends the guards in to check it and maybe like count the beds so she can start to renovate it maybe, and that's when they find the guy. But her and her crony or second command, whoever that is, they basically when they find him, they start talking about how, oh, this will look bad. This will be like a disaster. We're unlawfully,
because he's not in the system.
Yeah.
It's not even like they've kept him in a cell in solitary and they've just
been
forgotten about.
He's a mystery person who's not supposed to be there.
Yeah, they check his prints. Never, so much as jaywalking or whatever it was they say, whatever minor misdemeanor they choose.
This will be a PR nightmare. This will be more than PR nightmare. This is just flat out illegal.
Yeah, but this is like her first day in the job, so
yeah,
she can't be looking this bad already.
And she wants to get on the board eventually, so they're basically discussing ways to and at one point the guy flat out says, oh, we'll just put him in with a really violent cellmate and nature will take care of itself. And the prison guard who found him overhears this, and because he's got a conscience says, no, I'm going to phone this Henry Deaver who he said to ask for. And he phones Henry Deaver and says, hey, this guy asked for you. And that's what brings him to the town. And he gets there. And there's some personal stuff where, his mother, played by Sissy Spacek, she's with Glenn's character, Pangborn. And he's not very happy that he's around. He thinks that he's taking advantage of her because he's helping her sign for checks.
Yeah, she clearly has a dementia or some sort.
Yeah. And he used to be the chief of police, worth mentioning, as well.
Of course he did.
Of course he did, because he's just the same character as the Leftovers when you really boil it down to it.
Yeah, I know this is Stephen King and we're in Maine, but we're going to Australia.
We're really not.
No, even I'm not making that. Not on this show.
We're really not. No, but I mean, it's called Castle Rock for a start. I feel like I'm pretty confident.
We kind of have to stay there.
Yeah, the majority of the show. I mean, the odd side plot might move elsewhere.
Might take a little detour to Australia.
Yeah. But I mean, we got an alligator, but this was a Texas alligator here.
Close enough. I'll take it. bit of big critters. That's Australia. I'll do.
So no. We get some of this personal stuff, and they don't have a great relationship. It's also worth mentioning when he goes out back to the scene of the suicide / where he was found. This intercuts with Molly Strand, where she's looking at old wanted or missing posters of him, and she's got an egg timer out. So clearly they're connected, and I wonder if she knows what happened to him as a kid. If she was in on whatever was happening, and she's hiding it, and that's why she doesn't want to see him, or are they connected in some other way? I think it's worth mentioning that when he gets back home, there's a moment where he's up in his old bedroom, and he looks down the street at another house, and I'm wondering, is that where Molly lived and he was friends with her? Is that where Jane Levi's character lives and he's friends with her? I don't know, but it seems to be someone lived there.
Of potential connections.
Yeah. So no, it's interesting. But yeah, I mean that's the first episode pretty much.
Yeah. I say one of the standout scenes for me, I think, was when Diva goes into Shawshank to talk to the warden, right?
Yeah.
He's like, oh, I got a phone call. I'm gonna come and see my client, and she's just like, sorry, no idea what you're on about. And then she's like, oh yeah, we don't have the death penalty here, so don't know what you're doing here. And he's like, I never said I worked death cases. And there's a moment where he's like, oh, she knows who I am. She's researched me. And she's quick thinking, being like, yeah, I mean, we get the news. I know who you are.
Yeah, she's quick thinking, and she obviously, as soon as she shuts the door, she sighs like, oh shit, that was close. But I think for me, that moment still plays as he knows when she said that she's looked him up because someone did ask for me.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
But I really like the way that moment played and that interaction. I think it
Yeah.
was one of the strongest just conversations in terms of the
Yeah.
interaction for the episode.
And of course he sees the guard, what's his name, Zalewski, as he's leaving, and he makes eye contact. It's just enough to know that he's the one who called. Just enough.
Yeah, like enough that he's like, no, okay, there is something going on here. He's gonna keep digging.
And of course, Zalewski, he's the one who sees that the kid seems to have murdered a bunch of people at the end in the prison. Like there's just bodies on the security camera.
Yeah, yeah, it's quite the display.
It wouldn't shock me though if next episode this turns out to not have happened, and this is like just weird things he's seen to do with the kid or something. I don't know why I'm thinking that, but for some reason I just get the vibe that that might be the case. But
I mean, I think it's interesting either way.
It is,
like,
yeah.
Okay, if it's real, how did he do all this that easily?
And he's that dangerous then. Like he could go on a murder spree at any given moment.
Is this why he was in a cage?
Possibly, yeah. I mean, it may not have been a lawful imprisonment, but it was like, it was needed imprisonment.
maybe it was. It might not have been lawful, but maybe it was just.
Yes. So you got that going. There's one minor plot point I'll mention as well. Is that his father's grave? The church, the graveyard was moved, and they were all moved near the airport. And he was disappointed. He was angry to see that it's been paved over, and he's like, "Oh, where did they all go?" And that was the big thing he brought up. Was like, "Oh, my mother was okay with this." Like, "Oh, she signed off on it," and then it's like, "Oh no, you signed off on it for her." So that became like a plot point there. And I'm wondering if thematically there's something there, the idea of hiding the bodies, hiding the skeletons. Literally in this case.
Yeah, no.
I'm just looking for the links in the thematic.
Less hiding, more just moving them out of the way, like they're inconvenient.
Yeah.
I think that's like maybe it wasn't about hiding the kid, but more just what was convenient to just leave him there.
So I don't know. But that's episode 1. That's episode 1 of Castle Rock. It's not bad. It's not half bad. It's maybe not quite found its spark yet, but I'm definitely.
I think it's got. I like what the mystery's setting up, which should be enough for now at least.
Yeah. So we'll be back with episode 2 in the next day or two, and we'll have episode 3 done before it's time to do 4. All things going
usually
well.
How it works.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, but in this case, we could theoretically run out of time given how late in the week we're starting. So apologies, this was later than we normally have the reviews up, but we'll try and get through this and get back on track. But that is episode 1. So let us know what you thought of this one in the comments below. Like, subscribe, and all that stuff. Get us on patreon.com/MailFuzzTV if you want to support us and support everything we do here. But otherwise, that is it. So thank you once again for watching or listening. We always appreciate it. Keep watching TV, guys. Have you got any vanilla? Oh, and there's a reference to the Shawshank Redemption, actually.
Oh yeah, there is.
They mentioned the bullet hole in the office. I couldn't not mention that because that was a cool little thing. But yeah, bye guys.